Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. The Democrats built their entire modern brand around one thing. Now, let me see if you could guess it. I'll give you guys a couple seconds here, because I'm pretty sure most of you guys are either thinking it or saying it out loud. The entire Democrat brand is hating Donald Trump. That's it. That's the whole playbook. For 9 straight years, every poll, every donor email, every late night comedy monologue from Stephen Colbert and his ilk, every CNN Chiron, every tweet from Keith Olbermann, it all boils down to the same tired, overplayed garbage. Donald Trump is an evil threat to democracy. Keith Olbermann's just going on and on about how Donald Trump kicked him in the balls. And you know, I gotta admit it worked in 2018, kind of. But ever since then, has it really worked? The answer I'd say is unequivocally, not really. 2020 was a little bit of an anomaly, obviously, there were all kinds of external factors. But for some reason, Democrats convinced themselves that this is the strategy. But unfortunately for them, I think it might have been a little bit of a miscalculation. Because, well, firstly, the strategy isn't working. It's not working against Donald Trump. He just won the popular vote by millions of votes. And now there's a secondary negative impact here, because they've committed everything to this strategy to take down Donald Trump. They've made their entire brand opposing Donald Trump #resistance. But in 3 years, Donald Trump is gone. He's no longer going to be president. And so what position does that leave the Democrats in? It leaves them flat-footed with absolutely nothing to build on. They got to start back from scratch. And this dynamic, friends, I think it's putting them in a very, very bad position. And I think we're now seeing it as some early hypothetical 2028 presidential polling data drops, and it shows the Democrats in an extremely weak position, running against the perceived next candidate, that is J.D. Vance. We got an Emerson poll showing J.D. Vance obliterating all the top Democrat names going into the next election. And let me just say that that's not the only bad news for Democrats. So let me be the bearer of bad news, I guess, here. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so let's start off with the early 2020 hypothetical matchup polling. I'll post it here on screen. Now, of course, we've been covering this stuff for years, and usually data like this should be, pretty much on easy mode for Democrats, especially considering Donald Trump isn't even in the race, and J.D. Vance is a relatively new name in the political arena. But most importantly, because Democrats usually always overperform in early data. If we're taking polls about the general election, generally Democrats have a lead. But if you're taking polling data multiple years ahead of the next election, in early polling data, usually Democrats are up by like double digits. And I mean, boy, has that completely flipped on its head. J.D. Vance is beating all of them. Whether it's Gavin Newsom, Pete Buttigieg, or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, J.D. Vance is straight smoking them. This really does not bode well for the Democrats, even moving into 2026. There's all this talk of the Republican brand failing, and we've seen so many polls showing Democrats leading on all the key issues. Democrats are leading on the economy, they're leading on tariffs, they're leading on immigration. But again, these are all total frickin' push polls. And now in comes the actual real data. Well, maybe not exactly. This poll's from the Wall Street Journal after all, so it's likely still underestimating where the real numbers are at. But just take a look. On nearly every single important issue, the GOP is leading. In other words, the Republican brand seems to be surging rather than flailing. And it gets even worse when you look at the favorability numbers, as Democrats are now hitting their lowest favorability in 35 years. At least in this particular poll, let me repeat that. 35 years, with only 8% of the country viewing the Democrat Party as very favorable. It's gotten so bad that even the left-wing talking heads simply can't ignore it anymore.
The problem, of course, is if you're a Democrat, is that elections are 2 options, right? And if the other option, meaning Democrats, is seen as not really an option by the public, that's a giant problem. I think Democrats have been feeling better lately because they look at Trump's numbers and they think, well, surely we're going to win. And you might win in 2026 just based on historical trends, the fact that Republicans control everything. People want to send a message, maybe give a little bit of control back to the other party. But do not assume, based on numbers like these, do not assume this is a vote for the Democratic Party. People have no idea really what the Democratic Party stands for. And to the extent that they think they know, they don't like it, right? So it's weak, it's woke, and it's anti-Trump. That's what people will say about the Democratic Party. That is not getting it done. 33% favorable in the Wall Street Journal poll, 28% favorable in the CNN poll. These are record low numbers. You cannot, if you're a Democrat, you cannot just say like, they'll take care of themselves. No, you are in a brand crisis.
The literal only issue that Democrats have a small edge on, and again, it's probably smaller than what's being suggested here, is healthcare and vaccines. Congrats. Democrats certainly have the mandate now, don't they? And this right here, folks, this is why I just keep emphasizing in all the videos that I'm making that this whole notion that the Democrats are on the up and up, that the GOP brand and Donald Trump is collapsing, it's the biggest fake news being peddled by the media right now. It's just not happening. And the idea that MAGA momentum is slowing down, well, we're seeing the exact opposite. And the shift isn't just in the issues, it's also in the demographics. Pew Research actually just dropped some 2025 party affiliation data, and I've got IA Polls here who's done a comparison between their 2018 data and 2025 party affiliation data. And again, the moral of the story here is total devastation for the Democrats. Look at this. White voters went from R+8 to R+19. Black voters went from D76 to D52, which nets plus R24. Hispanics D+35 to now D+19, which is a +16 gain for the Republicans. Asians, Republicans gain 20 points. Men R+10, women R+9. High school or less education R+7. Voters who did some college R+12. College graduates R+8. Postgrads R+8. In absolutely every single important major demographic, the Democrats are completely collapsing and MAGA is growing. And that's over a pretty small period of time. That's from 2018, when the Democrats were riding their Russia high, to now 2025. That's 7 years, showing massive gains anywhere from R+2 to R+24. I mean, this is Democrat erosion, a political realignment unlike seen since the 1980s. And now if we're talking about a general election, there's really only two words that need our attention, and that's swing states. You have to win the swing states, but most importantly, you have to win the swing states, the blue-collar states in the Rust Belt. And again, the data is showing quite the abysmal future for Democrats. We're now learning that Pennsylvania, the supposed blue wall of the Democrats, is on the verge of flipping in terms of voter registration. You probably saw this all over social media, but according to the latest data, Republicans are now only 58,000 voters away from overtaking Democrats in active voter registration in the state. And in the past 2 weeks alone, they closed the gap by over 9,000. In other words, if this continues by 2026, Pennsylvania is going to be a red state. Democrats are losing ground in the exact places that they used to claim were their voter strongholds. And this right here is why I keep saying miss me with this, Donald Trump GOP collapse nonsense narrative. It's not happening. The Trump train is moving forward, MAGA continues to grow, and obviously the Democrats at this point have absolutely no idea how to stop it. The whole Democrat strategy has been run against Donald Trump, and now in a post-Trump era, they're going to be left with nothing, especially as the media machine is collapsing. Stephen Colbert is gone now, and the mainstream media at large is experiencing total ratings collapse. The anti-Trump fear porn isn't selling anymore. People don't want to be tuned into the 24/7 hysteria nonsense. No, they want homes, they want jobs, they want safety, security, and stability. And when it comes to speaking on issues like this, the Democrats are simply like fish out of water. I mean, case in point, take a look at this Hakeem Jeffries clip. Here's the top Democrat speaking on economic issues.
What can Democrats offer to, let's call it the midterms, say, here's what we can do to lower your grocery prices?
We need an all-hands-on-deck effort to ensure that we're putting money back into the pockets of the American people, using the tax code to make life more affordable for everyday Americans, as opposed to enacting massive tax breaks for billionaire Republican donors. We need to make sure that the supply is sufficient enough to meet the demand that exists, because if the demand is too high and the supply of goods doesn't actually meet where the market equilibrium is at, that presents challenges as it relates to everyday Americans. We need to make sure that this country walks away from the reckless Trump tariffs, which are going to increase costs on everyday Americans by thousands of dollars a year. That means grocery costs, goods, and gas all could dramatically increase. That's probably the most immediate thing that can be done. If this Congress actually, under Republican rule, was willing to act like a separate and co-equal branch of government and reassume our authority as it relates to tariff policy. But of course, what we see Republicans consistently do is simply act like a reckless rubber stamp for Donald Trump's extreme agenda, which has nothing to do with making life more affordable for the American people.
How can I describe that other than a total DEI word salad response? Like a fish out of water. That's exactly what I said. Democrats have absolutely no idea how to run on real issues anymore. The only thing they know is pushing this existential fear crap. And well, it's the boy who cried wolf phenomenon. It just doesn't land anymore. It just doesn't stick. Meanwhile, the GOP is becoming the party of the working class, of men and women of all races and backgrounds who simply just want a better life for their families. And so I guess doing the right thing, running on actual issues, engaging on ideas, well, it's paying off in the end. And this cynical crap that the Democrats have been peddling, well, it's starting to seriously backfire. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.